Good morning, everyone. I am Justin Hopper. I'm the Chief of Civil Rights for CDFA, and I want to welcome all of you to the CDFA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's celebration for Women's History Month. We've invited some leaders from CDFA to come and speak to us about their experiences with CDFA and what Women's History Month means to them. And moderating the conversation today is Undersecretary Christine Birdsong. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christine and take it away.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Hi, everybody. Great turnout. Thank you to the DEI committee for organizing this. It's always a great opportunity for us to kind of share our experiences, get to know each other a little better, and commemorate the month of the moment. So today we are celebrating Women's History Month. And I just want to start with a little bit of historical background. I always think it's important to know, how do we get these months? Like, is Hallmark behind them all or what? So this one, National Women's History Month, actually started in 1987. Now, before that, it was actually started here in California in 1978 as a week in our very own Sonoma School District. They started with a week recognizing important women in history. There was an essay contest. There was a parade down in downtown Santa Rosa. There was all kinds of classes, things that they were teaching in the classrooms about women's history. And then the idea caught on throughout the US. Other school districts, other local governments started having their own Women's History Week. And then in 1980, President Carter picked up on this and thought, well, let's make this a national thing. So 1980, it became a National Women's History Week in the month of March. I think it was March 8th. And then a few years later, the National Women's History Project petitioned US Congress to make it for a whole month. So that was in 1986. Congress passed National Women's History Month. First one was in 87, and here we are today. So that's a little history. That's how you make an important cause a national month of celebration. But here today to celebrate, we have some really accomplished women that I personally look up to and respect and learn so much from in just about every single meeting I'm in with them. I enjoy working with all of you, and I'm really grateful to be in conversation with you today. I'll start real quick, introduce Tawny Mata, who is our director of our Office of Environmental Farming and Innovation, or OFI, as we call it. Arima Kozina, thank you for being here. She is our Deputy Secretary for Finance and Administration. Dr. Annette Jones is our Division Director for Animal Health. That's another long one, but also our State Veterinarian. Thanks for being here. And then online, we have Victoria Hornbaker, who is our Division Director for our Citrus Pest and Disease Prevention Program. So thank you, all of you, for making the time to be here today. I'm going to start with a real easy question, which is, what do you do here at CDFA? How long have you been here? And maybe a little bit on what was your path? How did you come to be at CDFA? I'm going to start at the end with you, Dr. Jones.
Okay, thank you. So I've been here a while, and I had kind of a background that fit nicely for the job that I'm in now. And so I moved up pretty quickly. So I started in 2002 as a new employee in the animal health branch doing emergency response, and then was quickly deployed. I thought it was easy to work for the state. I kind of was tired of never seeing my kids in practice. And I thought, I was convinced by some of my coworkers, my kid's soccer coach, to apply to the state because you can have a balanced life. And then probably within a year, I was deployed for a year to Los Angeles to lead an outbreak response. And the rest is history, so to speak. But before that, I had the reason I say you just never know where your life's going to take you. So I was actually a budget manager at Lockheed Missiles and Space, and I was also a the business manager at an engineering firm. So I have a degree in economics. So I actually took that business stuff and compared it with veterinary medicine, and it turned out to be perfect for here at the department. I didn't plan that. It just happened. I think a lot of people end up, it wasn't really a plan. It's just life paths unfold in front of you and you take them.
It is paths unfold in front of you, but it's being at the right place at the right time. But it's also building up your own skill set, being the right person in the right place at the right time. And you definitely are. I think I met you it was the exotic Newcastle disease. Was that your first deployment?
Yep.
Yep. I met you back then many years ago. I was working for Governor Gray Davis at the time and came out. Tad Bell brought me out to see on the ground what was going on.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
remember
So
that.
I saw you in action. Very impressive. How about you, Arima?
I also came to CDFA via a very roundabout route. I've been with CDFA for the last 5 years. I started out as a special assistant working on the Healthy Soils Initiative and lots of climate policy, and then moved into my current role as deputy secretary. I tried really hard. Like when I was 17, I left California after packing and picking fruit for a summer. And I was like, I'm never coming back to California. I'm never working in agriculture. Like those are the two things that I'm never going to do. And so I went to school in North Carolina and tried really hard to get away from it. And then turns out I really love food and food systems. And so I got my ag degree, and I tried everything to do with agriculture. I'm a really bad farmer. I got fired from a lab. Like I tried to go into the Peace Corps and Ebola happened. Like everything, every time I tried to work with agriculture, I worked for a nonprofit for a while that had to do with agricultural commodities. And it just like wasn't working. So I got my MBA. I worked for a startup that worked on waste to energy, a waste to energy product. And then I went into consulting, which is what you do when you have a business degree. And so I consulted for Fortune 500 medtech companies and hit a point where I just, I was successful, I think, and it was working, but I just wasn't very happy. And I wanted to go back to what I loved, which was agriculture. And I wanted to be a public servant, which don't ask me why. I really liked West Wing. And so I was just looking around. So I took a little bit of a sabbatical. I worked at Weave, which is a nonprofit here in Sacramento that supports women who have gone through sexual violence. And I met the right people at the right time they were looking for someone with my skill set, someone with a business background who knew policy and environmental and agricultural policy. And so it all just kind of came together. And so it was a moment, kind of like Dr. Jones said, where you just kind of saw the arc, and all of these different skill sets from all of the different things that I'd done were just right for this opportunity.
Yes, Arima, you have had a very interesting life path, and I would invite anybody to have lunch with her, and she has some great stories to tell. I'll leave it at there. Some pretty funny ones. Thanks, Arima. How about you, Tawny? I feel you're kind of our newest comer, sort of.
Yeah, I've been here since December of 2022. So I've been here just under a year and a half. I came here from the Department of Water Resources, and I was actually pretty happy there. It was a pretty great place to work. But I had been wanting to come back to agriculture. I really love food. I'm an ecologist by training, so this always felt like the right place to be. I'd worked at the U.S. Department of Agriculture before. So when I saw this job, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to move or try to move. So that's how I came to have this position. So I have a doctorate in ecology from UC Davis. I spent some time working in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, then the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research after that, and then the Nature Conservancy, and a brief stint at UC Davis, trying to come back to California. The East Coast was really exciting. I thought it was a great place to kind of work on some policy chops and see things at a higher level. But my husband and I are both from the West, and we really wanted to come back and get some more topography and some more dry air. And I think you asked what I do every day. I feel like I do the budget every day. This is it's a career progression, and this is the highest position I've had yet. I have a just over 30 employees. I actually got 2 new ones sitting there right now. This is the first day I met them. A lot of that is making sure that all of my staff have the resources and the mentorship that they need to get their work done. They're certainly the deeper experts in almost everything than I am. I just need to know enough. Yeah.
And that's important. And you just had your OFI retreat a couple of weeks ago, and the secretary and I were able to join, and Virginia was there as well. And I just want to share with everybody, like, the energy at this retreat was so positive. Like, it was just a great feeling to interact with staff who are passionate about their work, experts at what they do, and really committed civil state servants, but committed to agriculture. So good job. Thank you. Victoria, hello. I'm so sorry. I can't see you on the screen, but I know you're there. I can feel you're
I'm
there.
here. I am. So thanks, everyone. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I'm here at the International Research Conference on HLB in Riverside, California today. Hearing you all talk about how you came to CDFA, I feel like there's a theme here. I started my career as a retail manager and decided that I really couldn't have a family life and work 80 hours a week. So I did go back to college and get my degree in wildlife management with the idea that I was going to run around and chase critters, because fun fact about me, I love rodents. If there was a career path to be a rodentologist where you could just study rodents and make a living at it, I would have been there. I started my state service down in LA at Department of Developmental Services doing hazmat for Lanterman Developmental Center, and decided that I wanted to move my family to Northern California for a better, I feel, better environment than what we had in LA. So I went to work for Department of Pesticide Regulation. It was a great place to work. I worked there for 7 years. In 2008, the person that actually mentored me at DPR had taken a job at CDFA running the vertebrate pest control program, and he had been promoted. And so, having met me and knowing how passionate I am about critters, he reached out and said, "We've got an opportunity here at CDFA." So I applied, thought about it really, quite a long time, because I felt good about what I was doing at DPR. It was a good position. And, then kind of took that leap of faith to come to CDFA. And I'll tell you what, guys, I have not looked back once. This has been the best career decision and life decision that I've made for myself and my family. For those of you that are starting out at CDFA, it's an amazing place to work. I've had the opportunity to try and do things that I would have never had in any other career path, and it's a family. And I think that's one of the important things that what I feel about with CDFA is we support each other, we hold each other up. We really, and you heard Tawny talk about making sure that her team has what they need. I think we all approach it that way, as we want our teams to have what they need, but we also support each other in the leadership realm as well. And hopefully that shows, and you guys feel that. And I always like to tell people on my team and anyone, open door policy. If there's anything that we can do for you, definitely reach out. But like I said, CDFA has been probably the best choice that I've made for my life and for my family's life. As Annette said, you take a state job thinking that you can actually have a family, and not unlike Annette, I've spent a lot of time running around the state of California, but it has allowed me. When I worked in the private sector, I wasn't able to take time off to go to my kids' events, and coming to CDFA, even though I was spread thin, I was able to do that. So what do I do right now for CDFA? I'm the director for the Citrus Pest and Disease Prevention Division. We're probably the youngest division at CDFA. We've been in division for about 4.5 years. August will be our 5th year, and we are dedicated to protecting California citrus, both commercial and residential, from invasive pests and diseases. I feel very passionate about this work. I look at this as citrus is my industry, even though I'm not a citrus grower. The success of myself and my division is equal to the success of our citrus growers in California. So, yeah, it's a great, place to work, and I love what I do.
Thanks, Victoria. And thank you for the plug on what a great place CDFA is to work at. We are hiring, so please go to our website. But on one note on Victoria as well, I don't know if some of you are aware, but 2023 was a historic year in California for fruit flies. So we were really all hands on deck in terms of facing that challenge. And Victoria is one of our CDFA leaders who was out in the field, meeting with growers, working with our field staff, really putting in long hours and a lot of heart and a lot of sweat into facing this challenge, like I said. So thank you, Victoria. Those were some long days for you for sure. I'm glad to have you. Okay. We have some really interesting people here at CDFA. All of your paths are so unique.
So Chrissy, how did you come to join CDFA? You're certainly a strong leader.
No, I'm the one asking the questions, Dr. Jones. Okay, well, really quick, I had similarly kind of circuitous road. I grew up in LA, not from a farm. So many people in ag policy have that background. I did not. I went to law school. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I had a really good friend who was living in DC at the time, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life, but I knew I was interested in policy. And she said, "Oh, why don't you move out to DC? Come live with me. We'll have a good time. Just come stay with me for a couple months and see what happens." So I moved out and I thought, oh, maybe I'll stay here for a year or two. And the job I ended up landing was with a congressman from California who represented the Central Valley. So my issue portfolio was going to be environment, which I thought, oh, cool. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm an environmentalist. This is perfect. And the other one was criminal justice, which was a topic in an area that I was really interested in law school, criminal justice. And then the third issue was agriculture. And I figured, oh, I'll learn that. No, it ended up being agriculture, agriculture, agriculture. So that's how I got my foot in the door on agriculture. And after that, there are all kinds of ups and downs, working for politicians. They lose elections, they're recalled, you're unemployed. But every time I came at a juncture in my life, the door that opened for me was always in agriculture. So I worked on Capitol Hill for the House Committee on Agriculture, a couple of farm bills under my belt. I worked for a trade association, Crop Life America, which represents pesticides. I worked for Cotton Council of America, which cotton growers, we used to say from dirt to shirt. We represented all aspects of the cotton industry. So I've really had a lot of different exposures and experiences with agriculture, and then moved to California to be closer with family, and just kind of lucked out from there with this position, which has been exciting and challenging and not one I could have ever planned for or prepared myself for. So that's my story. That's all I'm telling you of it anyways. Thanks for asking the question though, Dr. Jones. Now I want to turn, it is National Women's History Month. So I'm curious to know, what does that actually mean to you? Have you thought about it much? Is it kind of an impact on your career? Do you have a personal experience of it? Women's History Month, what does it mean for you? And I'll start in reverse this time. Victoria, I'll start with you.
Sure. So, putting some thought to that, I am the grandmother of 4 beautiful girls, and I recently, I take them places like national parks and things like that, because I tell people I'm growing the next generation of female scientists. I've had strong women throughout my life that have held me up and encouraged me to achieve. One of those being my mom. My mom's an amazing person. She's an artist. She's got a degree in horticulture. She loves agriculture. She loves citrus trees. I'll just tell you guys that. She's got like 28 citrus trees on her property. We didn't grow up with much, but I think I've had those people, those connections. I had a high school teacher, my biology teacher, who again encouraged me, hey, you can do anything. And I'll tell you guys right now, since coming to CDFA, when Secretary Ross came in and became our secretary, she's been tremendously important to me in my career and encouraging me to take next steps and step outside of my comfort zone. And, you know, in addition to the women that we see, you know, on TV and through history, they are empowering as well. But I think having those personal connections to women that you have in your life are key to getting you, you know, to take those next steps. So, you know, I wish Secretary Ross was here today so that I could thank her for everything that she's done to help me along my career at CDFA. And for those of you, like I said, I always, you know, keep that out there. Like, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. You know, we're here to help and support and raise you up as you make the next steps in your career, just like folks have done that for us as we were kind of taking those next steps in our career.
Thanks, Victoria. I think that Secretary Ross would have loved to have been here today. She is in South Korea, though, representing California agriculture. She is just the best ambassador for our industry we could hope for. But yep, I'd agree with you. She has influenced and supported many, many, many people here at CDFA and outside of CDFA. Tawny, what does Women's History Month mean to you?
I think the contributions of women and people of color are under-taught in schools. It's not primarily what we get when we're taught the facts and history of the United States and beyond. So I think that this is an opportunity to ask what are the stories that we are not hearing or we have not been heard traditionally as we grow up about history of agriculture, history of science. When I worked at USDA, I worked for two really incredible women leaders, the Undersecretary for Research, Education, and Economics, Kathy Wotecki, and her deputy, Ann Bartuska. And I think they weren't really flashy about their leadership, but they were really good relationship builders and collaborators. And I think that's a role that women often play in the workplace, and it's a quieter role. So it's not always what ends up on your history pages or right out front. So I think that this is an opportunity to recognize some of those flashy accomplishments, but also the network building and the relationship building and the facilitation that women offer. That's also really, really important to big historical milestones.
Yeah. Oh, I really appreciate that answer. I do think leadership comes in all different shapes, sizes, styles, and it is the flashy that tends to get the chapter in the history books, but there's so much quiet leadership that's happening. And I love that women can fill both. You know, we have the flexibility, the strength, the skills to do both, and both are needed. Arima.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think that growing up, I ever Women's History Month was something that I paid as much attention to as I maybe should have, or that was as meaningful to me in my early career as maybe it should have been. I think that when I had my son 3 years ago, a lot of that really changed. I think that it definitely opened my eyes to the way that traditional gender roles, whether I liked them or not, were still kind of playing a big role in my life. We put in generic typewritten invitations into his little kids, all of his classmates' things. And all of the moms messaged me to let me know that they were coming to the party and to coordinate everything and see what they could bring. And I was like, I'm not in charge of this party. That's my husband. And also, why are you all texting me? And so I think it's just really opened my eyes to a lot of these things that, even if you try to ignore them, they're going to come up in your life. And I think it is part of what we're taught, and that being kind of institutionalized. And so taking a moment and really looking at these things and looking at the stories and how women have played a role throughout history is something that's necessary. You might hope that it's not, but it's necessary so that you can really, until there's a time at which we tell the stories of women and people of color equally, when we learn about our history, it's necessary to take the time out and dedicate yourself to doing that. I would say also, I'm very acutely aware that 100 years ago, women who had 100 years ago, it feels like it's triple digits, but it's not that long ago. In the 1920s, if you had a political opinion as a woman, you were institutionalized because you had to have been hysterical. You were sent to a mental asylum. And now you have a lot of women up here who I'm pretty sure we all have opinions. And it's a privilege to be here. And so recognizing that progress, I think, is really important.
Yes, my husband definitely feels I have opinions. Glass of wine sometimes is the cure. I agree with, I think you all said things I definitely agree with. But just as you were speaking, and I've been thinking, there's a lot of people, like Victoria mentioned, there's a lot of people, women, men, in between, that are leaders in their life in one way. We probably everyone really is. Everybody feels a really important role in their life. But when, and I think of people I actually would see in a history book today, which hopefully would include more women today, they all had to give up a lot to stand the test of time and to truly be a leader. It's been, some of the choices I've had to make in my life to take a leadership role meant there was a lot of things that I had to give up, and that it also impacted the people around me, and they had to give it up. And I think that is still a challenge for women today. It's not true that you can just do everything and do it all perfectly. There's gives and takes. And I think it's good to talk about and talk with other women who have had to make those decisions, so that, and men, in all fairness, we all make them now, to try and figure out how to make those choices. Like, who needs me more right now, my job and my employees, or my family, or my spouse and my kids? And they don't all need you the same every day. So sometimes you'd have to give up time with one to do time with another. And being able to do that well can, I think, help you be a leader and also maintain a happy life, that's the actual real challenge.
That's some great advice. Thank you. And that is true. I've been asked the question, like, how do you balance it all? And I say, there is no such thing as balance. That is a really unfair fallacy that's put out there. Every day, something's out of whack. And I just kind of hope at the end of the week, at the end of the month, that it all comes out pink in the wash, as my friend likes to say. But yeah, talking to each other, normalizing the challenges, the sacrifices is really important. Building that network of support as well, and making, having fair expectations is really important. Yeah. You remind me of this story of my great grandmother actually talking about kind of the opportunity to have a career and the sacrifices you make. And my great grandmother, Anita Veal Robbins, was in the first class at USC Law School that admitted women. So she became a lawyer and married my great grandfather, and he was a lawyer as well. And she went and she represented women and children in family court, which is all that women lawyers, the few of them that were out there, were allowed to do. But she really loved her job. And one day she heard two male lawyers walking down the hall, and they looked into her office, and then one said to the other, "I would never let my wife do that." She heard that, she got up and she quit her job, because she did not want her husband to feel any kind of shame or embarrassment about the work that she was doing. So I think back on like how that moment reflects so much evolution in terms of what women were allowed to do. She got to go to law school, she had a job, she had a career, and then being cut up short by kind of the attitudes of the day. And this is true, I think, in everything, whether it's civil rights or talking about women's rights, we make so much progress and then there's a hiccup. And it can be really exhausting to start over, right? So she turned around and she kind of focused her energies on her community and volunteering. And that was kind of another way she could scratch that itch of being involved, of using her executive skills and all of that. But I do wonder, what a loss to the legal profession. But so it's great to see women who have made it past that hurdle and are very advanced in your careers and accomplishing so much with husbands who are supportive. That partnership is really important for us. Let's see. So I think kind of a few of you, Victoria and Tawny, maybe mentioned a woman in your life that was really particularly inspirational. And I just kind of wanted to give everyone a chance. Maybe there's someone else you want to bring up, but I would love to know, who is that woman in your life who has been most inspirational to you? I'll start with you, Dr. Jones.
Shoot.
I can come back.
No, it's okay. Because this way it's honest, because I hadn't really thought about it ahead of time. And for some unknown reason, there was an elderly woman, Mrs. LaCusta. I grew up in Santa Fe, and she was tough as nails. And I was pretty young, and I rode horses with her all the time. And she would tell me all kinds of stories about how San Francisco evolved, how the Bay Area evolved, what life was like when she was a kid. Her husband was a San Francisco attorney, and her dad was, no, her father-in-law was. But and I think just her zest for life and strength, I think that had an impact I had not even recognized until you just asked me that question. But she definitely jumped to mind first.
I love that. I love that, how you just had kind of an immediate reaction, and maybe it wasn't someone that you would have, you'd have to put more thought to it. That's a personal, it's like she rubbed off on you in a very tangible way.
Can you repeat that?
Oh, no, I was just saying that that's really interesting that you picked someone that just came to the top
Oh.
of mind that maybe not necessarily wouldn't, have thought of.
Similarly, I was not prepared for this question. And the person who jumped to mind, I mean, I've been really lucky that all of the women in my family are just like very strong Jewish women with lots of chutzpah. And I love that. But really the one who kind of encouraged me when I was younger was my neighbor, Grandma Alda, who was not my grandma, which I found out at an embarrassingly late age. But I thought she was, and she was, she was a Spitfire. She had chutzpah's roves, and she just like whipped everyone into shape. And she, like, when her husband passed away and she was unhappy with the, there's like a cemetery off of Broadway and in Sacramento, and she was unhappy with the state that it was in. And so she wrote to everyone. She wrote to like the people in her, I'm going to butcher this because I don't know a lot about the Catholic Church, but like it went up regionally until it was like, she wrote a letter to the Vatican and was like, I'm unhappy with the way that this is being handled in Sacramento, California. And I need these plants to be watered because this is where my husband is laid to rest. And if you've ever driven by this cemetery, it looked pristine for all of the time period between then and when she passed away. And now it's in disrepair again. So I just think that the world could use a few more Grandma Aldas. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's really inspiring. Very cool. How about you, Tawny?
This is tough to choose. Well, I did mention briefly Ann Bartuska, the Deputy Undersecretary at USDA. I started at USDA as a fellow with the American Association for the Advancement of Science as AAAS fellow. And I was really intimidated by Ann. She had this very straight face in meetings. She intimidated everybody else. But she had such composure and thoughtfulness with some of these really tricky policy issues. And I just like really wanted to be like her. I'm still working on it. And the composure part is a work in progress. But a couple of years later, I got the privilege of giving her a job recommendation. So she was moving to a new position, and they called me for a recommendation. And I actually got a call back about a year later from somebody there, I talked to them. I gave her a glowing recommendation. And then about a year later, I happened to talk to somebody who worked there, and they were like, thank you so much for sending her our way. Like a better decision could not have been made. She is so thoughtful and deliberative and like calm in a storm. We're really grateful to have her. And that just warmed my heart because that's how I felt about her. And she was then going on to make a difference in this other young woman's life and her career at a different organization. So I think I'd pick Ann.
Wow. Well, that is nice to return the favor to Ann, to help her along in her career the way she helped you. And I would say for sure that you espouse many of those qualities, Tawny, that you paid the compliments that you paid to her. So it also rubbed off on you, these great women in our life. They do influence us. Victoria.
Yeah, so like I said, I think for me it's my mom. Watching her go back to college and get her degree, and the struggles that she went through to have a career, raise a family, instill in my brother and I, the desire and like I said, just kind of like holding us up that we can do anything that we put our minds to, and her zest for life and her being an artist, and me being very not artistic, and kind of feeding off of that with her, because in her mind's eye, the world looks different than it does to me. But in seeing the world through my mom's eyes, I've been able to appreciate, a lot of things that if I wasn't exposed to it, I probably wouldn't appreciate it. So, it's weird to kind of say with all these incredible women out there that the one I hold, as the most dear to me in helping me get where I am in my life is my mom.
She sounds wonderful. Are you going to call her right after you're done with us?
So I'm actually here at the conference in Riverside, and my parents actually live down here in Riverside. So I am staying with them while I'm down here, because if I try to stay in a hotel, when I'm down here in Riverside, I get the nasty gram. So
you get in trouble, of course.
Yeah. So it's great because I get to spend time with them, and she's got, you can go outside with her and she can look at a plant and tell you all about that plant and, dissect it down to the beauty of each petal on the flower. I mean, that's the way she looks at the world, and it's exciting, and it's not the way I look at the world. So it's exciting to me because I see the world through her eyes.
Oh, well, tell Mrs. Victoria's mom that we all say hello, and she would have been great on this panel too today.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll get a hold of her. Yeah. And by the way, you are creative, Victoria. I have seen some of your craftiness and those tamales I've heard about. Like, you definitely have a creative streak as well. Maybe it's a little bit different. Well, so we all had a chance to talk about the women in our lives who are role models are important. And I just want to say that each of you is also, whether you know it or not, you are also serving that function every single day for people on your teams and the stakeholders you interact with. So I want to thank you for all of the hard work you do and to the professionalism and the warmth and the humanity that really is what's important to our jobs when we're connecting with communities and with our stakeholders. So you are among the best at CDFA, and I'm really, really grateful to be working with you. So with that, how about some questions? Anybody have questions for these illustrious women?
Questions? Okay.
So for the group, what's your favorite program or activity you've done since you've been at CDFA? And what's your favorite function at CDFA, whether it's a specific program, activity, whatever it may be? What's your favorite thing here?
Oh, Arima, go.
I feel like I'm going to sound like a crazy person for this because I also this is also probably one of my least favorite functions, but I actually do really secretly deep down enjoy the budget process.
Oh my God.
I know. But specifically when we get to getting the BCPs through Department of Finance and through the governor's office and through the negotiations and with the legislature, I really enjoy learning from everyone as we go. And I'm just like really honored that for some reason y'all let me be the like voice of these things when we go to the legislature. It's really exciting and cool to be able to represent all the really great work that we do at CDFA. And I feel like that's the role that I get to play, is I get to kind of fight for CDFA. I mean, we don't always win, but we get to fight for what CDFA needs. And that's pretty fun.
And that's
So,
why you are sitting in the chair you are sitting in, both here and upstairs. Go ahead, Dr. Jones.
I'm going to
Victoria.
answer this. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead,
Real quick, I
Victoria.
was going to answer this question. I told my son, he's asking me about my career the other day, and I said, the funnest day I've ever had was I was out in Castroville in a muddy artichoke field trapping voles with Dr. Roger Baldwin from UC Davis. I got covered in mud. I did not catch any voles. I did catch some house mice, but it was probably the funnest day because it had to do with rodents. I love rodents. So that was my funnest day at CDFA. But I really enjoy, and this is a weird thing to say because I hate talking in public. I love talking to people. Sometimes y'all can't get me to stop talking, and I apologize for that. But I think sharing the excitement and the passion that I have for what we do at CDFA is something that comes very easily to me, and I really enjoy doing that. So doing the outreach.
That's great. That is the hard part and the fun part, for sure. Dr. Jones?
I'd say two things. One is there've been several instances that are very difficult, huge challenges, be it an outbreak, a contamination event, standing up a new program, new legislation. But my very favorite thing is when a team of people come together and kind of all their cylinders are firing and they overcome those hurdles. I mean, it's the same like if you're telling a story to a kid, they love that same kind of story. But I really like those opportunities. And then, no, they're a little stressful. And then the other thing that I really like, it ties to that, is there's so many brilliant people and so many giving people that work for us and work with us. I think people are drawn to service who tend to be givers. And then we're such a, it takes such a variety of individual talents to get things done. And that might be why you like the budget process too. Crazy girl. But it's really rewarding when I just can stand back and I'm watching people do things like 15 times better than I ever could. And you just really watch them excel and take ownership. And, that's really rewarding to me. Some of them are sitting here now.
Definitely a team leader, and you bring out the best in your employees, Dr. Jones. Some of that has to do with you and the way you lead.
Thanks.
I do not like the budget process, but I do really like learning a new science topic enough to be fluent and talk to a legislator or a Department of Finance analyst about it. So that part of it I do like. And I think a good example is enteric fermentation, something I had no idea what that was before I started this job. And then I went really, really deep, and now I'm pretty fluent. And now I really love it when I get the opportunity to talk to stakeholders about it who are not familiar, and I get to use some of my science chops and my science background, but I get to connect with people who are invested in agriculture, either from private tech companies or farmers. I just went to a dairy sustainability conference the last few days, and I sat down and had 2 really deep conversations with dairy farmers, and that's the part I love the most. And especially when I can have those conversations and find a way that I can do something immediately for them. And there have been a few examples in this job where I've received some feedback about some of our programs, and I'm like, that is an easy fix, and we can fix it. And that feels really, really good.
Yeah. You are curious. And I really like that about you. It's contagious, and your curiosity that allows you to drill down deep, and then you're able to come back and explain things in a really easily accessible way. I'm not a scientist, but when you explain things to me, I get it. And so I really appreciate that. But your curiosity, I think that's common among all of our scientists. And it's just a wonderful thing to be able to work with you all. Any other questions?
What about you, Christy?
Oh, what's my favorite day or day? I love those farm tours. every time I get invited to do an ag tour, I am so excited and grateful. Again, since I didn't grow up on a farm, it still feels kind of exotic to me and miraculous. And just watching the machinery and the tech, the human labor, like all of it still blows my mind. It makes me very excited about what we get to do and just re-energizes just how I feel about my job and approaching problems, coming up with solutions, which can be kind of defeating after a while. Sometimes we have a lot of hard challenges in this state, but when I'm reminded of who we're doing this for, it just kind of renews my commitment. Makes me really appreciate where I'm at as well. There's just no job like this. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Christine, and to all of you for just a wonderful hour to kind of stop and reflect. I'm wondering if any of you would be interested in talking about maybe a male colleague or a male mentor that allowed you to safely get to where you are today, and if you'd like to reflect on a person like that in your life that wouldn't maybe become, the one woman that you looked up to, kind of thing.
I have one like right off the bat. I have a mentor named Dave McLean. I met him when I was at the Nature Conservancy. He worked on the board of a project that I worked on, but he was the head of IT for Dow. So nothing related to what I do in terms of, but we share a similar mind, but he's more mature and more thoughtful. He's in retirement now. And I still talk to him every 2 weeks. We have a mentorship call, and he makes an hour for me, and I can talk to him freely about all the things going on, and bounce ideas off of him. And when I worked with him directly at the Nature Conservancy, he would always make space for me in meetings, which is something I always try to do with women in meetings. Like, it can be easy to get talked over. And so it's hard to talk over me. I will insert myself. So I will stop the conversation, then try to punt it to somebody who might not feel as comfortable speaking up. And he always made space for me in those conversations. And took a real interest in helping me with the professional development, specifically facilitation skills that have become really, really important to me as I've continued to move on in my career. Thanks, Dave.
That's a typically insightful question from you. I'm learning. I'd say I've had 4. Starts with my dad, typical 1950s model male, but who never doubted that I could do whatever I wanted to do if I put my mind to it. Dr. Breitmeyer, who was in my position before me, who really put me in a position to exceed. Dr. Ardance, who was the leader of the California Animal Health and Food Safety Lab, who was a prince of a man and a gentle giant, who also empowered lots of females to follow in his footsteps and take leadership positions, and Tad Bell.
Mm-hmm.
I've certainly had, there are certainly a lot of leaders at CDFA, men and women, who I look up to, and I wish that I could name them all right now, but the list would be too long. I think that it's been really amazing to be in this environment and kind of take a little bit from each of the leaders that I've worked with. That feels predatory. No, it's just the things that I really admire. And this is so cheesy, but my partner, my husband, is like an incredible partner and husband, but also I met him when I was in business school, and he really has been there to help me through my career in a way that I would expect a professional mentor to. And it's really been a true partnership. And so he's always the one when I have to make decisions that's coaching me through them in a way that I, with a perspective that I wouldn't have come to it with. So I'll be I'm really nervous about doing this. And he's like, why? You have these skills. And, if I were in your position, this is what I would do. And then he would coach me through well, how do you want to present yourself in this situation? And so when I've had kind of mentor relationships with men and women in the past, that's been the kind of support that I've gotten, and I get it at home, which is awesome.
Unfortunately, Victoria had to run back to her conference, so she has representing CDFA effectively. So,
Yeah.
but we do have a couple of comments or questions in the chat. Any advice from the panelists on how they make life decisions like those that have formed their career paths? Intuition, lots of deliberation, and kind of in the same vein, what is your biggest piece of advice for people just starting their careers?
Go.
So one of the kind of insights that I got from a leadership program that I was recently in was about quantum leaps. And I think it has really like summarized how I have like gone about making decisions in my career, particularly in early career, which is that like generally you can see your life like in retrospect usually, but you can see your life as some kind of like linear trajectory. And it's a good life. It's a great life. You can be at the peak of that curve and be kind of like moving along your career. And there are going to be opportunities that arise and you have to be looking for them, but there are going to be opportunities that kind of arise and they could be personal or professional, where you just look at it and you say, well, I don't know if this is a good decision. It's incredibly risky. And like, it could take that curve and just like, it's quantum leap, like it could just increase it, right? Like you could be going along this curve and then all of a sudden it's up a little bit more. And you have to be on the lookout for those things. And when they happen, I have found that when I am less risk averse and I'm more willing to just say, yeah, why not? Let's try it, to opportunities that fall in my lap. That's been what has helped me the most in my career, is like looking out for those opportunities where you can take a quantum leap and it might not work, but then where you end up is just back on that same curve. And like having the kind of, I think it's easy as a woman to second guess yourself and say, who am I to be making this leap, or like, am I ready? And I think if you're asking that question, you're probably ready.
Can you just repeat the question one more time? It was deep in Arima's answer.
So it's kind of two. So what life decisions have formed your career paths? And is there anything else like intuition, deliberation,
yeah.
or what is your biggest piece of advice for people starting their careers?
Okay. Well, I can say I think the number one most important thing about being happy in your career is being happy with the people you work with. And you could have the coolest, sexiest job ever, but if the people you work with are bad, you will have a bad time. So I think I will actually generally people will call my references and then I will call theirs. And I will try to find out what it's like to work at that organization. And if they won't give me any names for that, then there's a problem. So I think that would be my number one thing. All the places I've been happiest have been really great places to work with great people. So I think that's like a top piece of advice for me. I think kind of building on what Arima says, there are very few people who are going to be like, I want this job and I'm going to be on a 30-year pathway to get that specific job. I mean, that may apply to 5% of humans, but there are probably 5 great jobs pathways you could have, and there's no absolutely set way to get there. And I think the most important thing to keep your options open is to network with people, and to, build relationships with people inside and outside of your organization, and to keep your eyes and ears open for those quantum leap opportunities. And I honestly don't think there are a lot of mistakes. I think you'll learn something. I've had some jobs where I'm like, this was not a great fit, but I still learned something, and I still took away skills from that experience, even if it wasn't something I wanted to be in the long term.
I love that. I completely agree with everything you both said. And then just maybe to add to it, patience. I've learned sometimes if you have the time to be patient in a decision, it's really helpful. So when you have decisions, especially if they affect more than one person that you have to make on your career, just unless you have to make it overnight, which sometimes you do, and then you just go for it. But just, think about it. And think about it and talk about it and talk about it. And eventually the right answer always appears at some point, and you feel, that that's the right choice.
I'll add that when I moved to Michigan to take my job at the Nature Conservancy, I had only been at the Foundation for Food and Ag Research about a year, and I wasn't necessarily ready to leave, but I had a partner who needed a meaningful career as well. So that was something that was not in my plan. It was not necessarily optimal for me or what I thought was optimal at the time, but through that experience, I learned all these facilitation skills, met the mentor that I still talk to every 2 weeks. And it had a profound impact on my ability to lead. So it worked out. It didn't look like that at the very beginning, but it worked out.
Any other questions from our in-person audience? We are running a little long, but that's okay. So I did want to read a comment that was in the chat from Tara. And she said, it was great hearing that there is something that I share a connection with each of you. It's empowering to hear your stories and know that we have such strong women leadership at CDFA. And I think that goes double for all of us in the room too. We all feel the same way.
Thanks, Tara. That's a great way to end this.
I agree. So thank you everybody for attending online. If you're online, thank you for being here in person as well. For our friends here in person, we do have some refreshments in the bistro. They are first come, first serve. Don't hurt each other trying to get out of here. And they are purchased from a woman-owned business. What's the name of the place? The Hidden Dumpling House. Yeah. And they smelled pretty good when they came in. So we'll have those in the bistro for folks that are interested. And again, thank you everybody for being here, and keep an eye out for future events from the DEI committee in the months to come.